Yeah, welcome once again to today's video on human error in traffic system. So before we dive into the topic today, from what we have here, we can say we have the aspect of the human error and we have the traffic system. So anything that prevents the free flow of traffic, then one of those factors that can prevent the free flow of traffic in any road network can be the human error. And so, what exactly do we understand by human error? Human error is it refers to maybe any form of action or oversight, which is by a person that leads to an unintended outcome or a failure to achieve a desired goal. So, in most cases, it is usually an unintended. It comes with an unintended output. For example, a driver who is drunk and driving does not intend, or in most cases might not intend to hurt any of the road users in the process of driving home. So, but an error might have occurred, which is being drunk, and this action, because that is an action, being drunk is an action by the person or by the driver that might lead to an unintended output, which might be in form of an accident, which is definitely a failure to the desired goal. The desired goal of that driver is to arrive home safely in the best possible way, even when I don't even have an understanding, or we can't really relate to how that could be done when he's drunk. But in the mind of that drunk driver is also his intention, or the goal he wished to achieve is to arrive home safely. But there might be an unintended output, which might be in form of an accident. So that is the human error of it. So we have different breakdowns, different types of human error, which we're still going to be looking into in this video. And some of these errors, it can be as a result of slips, it can be as a result of mistakes, it can be, and in most cases, people interchange human error as synonymous as mistake, which is not. So we're still going to be looking into that. We have the slips, we have the lapses, and this can occur during familiar or similar tasks. So in this video, we are going to be looking at the human error, the different types of human error, and how the role it plays in a traffic system. So those are some of the aspects we are going to be looking at in this video today. So what exactly is in human error? Just like I explained, it's just an unintentional action, but which brings about an undesirable outcome. But that is not just it, but this is just the face value definition of the human error. So when we want to relate this to traffic system, we say human error when it relates to traffic system is a mistake or misjudgment made by a road user. So the road user might be the driver, the road user might be the pedestrians, it might be the cyclists, it might be the traffic controllers. But in most cases, or majorly from this video, we're going to be focusing more on the driver. That leads to an unsafe situation, and that unsafe situation might be in form of accident or traffic disruption. Traffic disruption here can be in form of maybe delay as a result of the accident. There might be a delay and traffic congestions, and this can lead to you know greater delay of other road users to achieve whatever goal they wish to achieve on the road. So it human error in traffic system is also said to be the leading cause of road accidents globally. Like one of the leading cause of global accident, leading cause of road accident globally is the human error, and that shows the high effect of human error in our day-to-day life, most especially in the traffic system. So we can also say that the traffic error in human error in traffic system can be an unintended actions or decision by a road user that deviate from expected safe behavior, because the reason, the high motive of any road user or any driver is to achieve safe behavior, is to achieve um, a safe driving system, or to be able to drive safely or to exhibit a safe behavior. And when this is not done or when this is not achieved, it can lead to a traffic incident. So in human errors in transportation can be breaking down it can be broken down into different categories, because we have different categories to human error. So we have them maybe in sense of the decision making, in sense of the violations. So there are different breakdown to human error. So we're going to be looking at the different categories we have. So, but before we look into that, we have the impact of human error on traffic safety. It can be seen here is some of the stats that it accounts for 90 to 95% of traffic incidents, and this is on which is according to the World Health Organization and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration (NHTSA). And some of the also the impact of human error on traffic safety can be it leads to fatalities. We know that injuries and property damage. So and also contribute to congestion and delay. So this been able to explain in the previous slide. So some of the possible examples of this is maybe a driver texts and runs a red light and crashes into another vehicle. We can see that there is a human error. The human error can be as a result of negligence on the part of the driver, but an error is an error. So the driver texting doesn't intend to run into another vehicle, but it is just out of the negligence on the part of the driver that led to that. It might just be a quick action, like, okay, let me just quickly drop this message or let me respond to this message. And before we know it, it just takes a few seconds and, any form of accident could happen. So that is one of the possible examples. Another one is a pedestrian crosses a street outside a crosswalk and not looking in the right direction. We know how a crosswalk is, so it requires a pedestrian, paying attention on the crosswalk, and this can also lead to any possible form of accident or crash. Then another one is a cyclist turns suddenly into traffic without signaling. So it is also very important for a cyclist to signal, and failure to do that, which is also might be in form of a negligence on this part also of the cyclist, can lead to um, any form of accident. So we are going to be looking into the various categories of human error. So we have various categories of human error. So we have here decision errors, we have the skills based errors, we have the perceptual errors, communication error violations, fatigue or impairment, organizational and systematic factors. So from this category, some of them are self-explanatory. When we talk about the fatigue or the impairment, but we'll look into all these errors one after the other. So when we're talking about the decision error, these are errors that occur when an individual makes a poor choice or misjudgment. So it is as a result of the decision the person makes. It's a poor choice and it's a misjudgment. The same way we're able to explain in the previous slide about the driver trying to text while driving. It is a poor choice. The choice, there is a decision, there is a choice. He can choose to respond to the message or pick up the phone or not. So the decision of that driver to we pick up the phone to respond to a message that leading to any form of accident is what we call the decision error. And some of this decision error might not only just be about responding to messages, it can be in form of misjudging the speed or distance, while merging or at the point of intersection, or tailgating another vehicle. Another thing might be it might be as a result of poor route planning. So that can also be another decision error. Failure to follow procedures can also be because it's a decision on the part of the driver to fail or to decide not to follow procedures. Maybe skipping a checklist in any form of on the road. And another one might be inadequate risk assessment. Some drivers might take some decisions. Okay, let's say for example, it has been recorded maybe in the news that there is an accident on a certain road, and a driver knows that the road is the shortest path in getting to wherever he is going to. So rather than taking another alternative route leading to wherever he wants to go to, he decides to go into the, he decides to go ahead on that road that there has been a record of an accident, and in anything that happens in the course of that might be as a result of a decision error, because he has not inadequate risk assessment, looking at the fact that he might be caught up in the accident or whatever thing that has happened on the road. So an inadequacy on the part of the driver and making a decision to still go ahead on that road can be a decision error. So the second category of human error we have here is the skill-based error. And here we're talking about the slips and the lapses, though we're still going to explain that, which is one of the models and the theories of uh, one of the one of the psychologists of someone who, one of the models that was developed. We have these we said the skill based errors are just more like slips or lapses in routine tasks due to attention or memory failure. So this is a skill based error. There is this particular person is skilled, or this driver might be skilled, but there are still some errors that might arise even with the level of expertise of the person. So, and some of this can be maybe lapses in attention, that is looking at the phone while driving. So it is a bit similar to that of the decision error, but the difference is that yes, there is a skill base. The driver feels that he's skilled enough to is skilled enough to drive and also press his phone or do whatever thing while driving. So that might be an error. So that can also be categorized as a skill based error. Another might be forgetting a step. When you forget to take a particular step, maybe checking the possible functions of the vehicle, or checking the maybe if there is enough water in the cabinet, or whichever areas of the vehicle before leaving the house. Or maybe probably the vehicle keeps signaling maybe lack of enough fuel in the vehicle, but just having this level, just taking it as a form of levity can also be another skill based error. Over correcting with steering or braking, so this can also be a skill based error. Or inadvertent operations of control. So these are some of the examples on the skilled based error. So for the third category of human error we have here is the perceptual error. And this perceptual error happen when sensory input is misinterpreted, and often due to maybe poor visibility or misleading cues. And when we're talking about it, it's just more like from the word perception. So an example of it can be maybe mistaken signs or signals, and maybe not noticing pedestrians or cyclists, or any of those can be as a result of can be just under the category of the perceptual human error. Then the fourth one we have is the communication error. So there is breakdowns in the transfer of information, maybe particularly in teams of multi-operational environment. So example of this can be maybe when you misheard or misunderstood instructions, or failure to confirm or read back, or improper use of communication equipment. So this can also lead to an error, and this type or this category of error is called communication error. So the next one here is what we call the violation. Violation can be an intentional deviation. Yeah, it can be an intentional deviation, and we said violations or an intentional deviation are deliberate breaches of rules or procedures, and maybe not necessarily malicious, but they are still deliberate. Example of this can be maybe a routine violation, like maybe speeding. It can also be by not wearing a seat belt. Another might be maybe as a result of the situation. We call it a situational violation. Maybe ignoring a signal due to maybe time pressure, trying to get to work as soon as possible, or late for an appointment or a meeting. And another form of violation under this can be maybe exceptional violation, like maybe taking dangerous shortcuts. So every of these violations or every of these types of violation, whether it is a routine violation or a situational or exceptional, every of them are intended, they are deliberate breaches and still can be categorized under of violations in human error. So the the next category of human error we have here is what we call the fatigue and impairment. I think it's self-explanatory. So we know performance can be degraded due to physical or psychological state when an individual or a driver is exhausted from work and leaving work, going to his home. There is a level of fatigue that might make the driver incapable of driving, and not just about the fatigue or stress from work. It can also be in form of maybe any form of impairment, maybe any of the psychological states or um, the state of mind of the driver. So more like a drowsy drive, being drowsy. So in a driver who is so tired and feeling sleepy and feeling all drowsy, there is high chances or high tendency of committing an human error in the process of driving. And maybe also when the is under the influence of maybe any under the influence of any substance, maybe it might be alcohol or whichever form of substance it is, can also lead to this type or this category of error. And another point can also be maybe stress or distraction, maybe from personal issues, can also be categorized under the fatigue or the impairment. Or someone who is suffering from maybe a condition, maybe the condition of maybe autism, or finding it very difficult to concentrate at a given task, can also lead to this ca- category of human error, which is the fatigue or impairment. So the last part of under this is we have the organizational or systematic factor. So from the word itself, organizational or systematic factor, we can say, come on, this shouldn't be as a result of human error, because we're looking at a systematic approach here. So while we cannot straightly say it is an human error, but it is contributes to the situation where human error is more likely. So this factor or this category, it contributes to situations where human error is more likely. So this might not just be by the individual, but it contributes, this particular category contributes to the situations where human error could be more likely. And so under this might be as a result of maybe inadequate training. We know there is a system in the organization for training, so that system is in place, but when that system is not done adequately, it can lead to human error. Or maybe poor shift scheduling. We know these are also systematic factors, but if those factors are not in place, it can lead to human error. Because if I am being scheduled to be at work by 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., but if there is an error in the system, that instead of just one person to be on that shift, but two individuals were placed on that shift, that is an error. So it can be as a result of the system, but leading to, you know, human error. Another might be an unsafe work ethics or ambiguous policies. So all these things are under the organizational and systematic factors that can lead to human error. So these are the various categories of human error. So this will lead us to the type of human errors based on reasons model. We explained a little bit of some of these errors in the earlier so explain some of this, talking about the slips and the lapses and also the mistakes and the violations, but we'll be able to look into them much more in this aspect. So for the types of human error based on reasons model, which is also popularly known as the Swiss cheese model. We are going to be looking at the types of errors under this model. Then we now go into the reasons model in and expatiate on that. So looking at the first type of human error under this is what we call the slips. And these slips are unintended actions that occur during a familiar task. That is, it is a task that the individual is familiar with. Maybe it might be such as pressing the wrong button or reading the wrong gauge. So which can happen sometimes where, it's just an error that happens. Even when you're familiar with a particular task, we can still see ourselves making some mistakes. From the example we have on this slide, it says hitting the accelerator instead of the brake. That can happen. So that kind of error, based on the reasons model, is what we call the slips. The second is what we call the lapses, and this lapses is just more like a memory failure. So this involves forgetting to carry out a step in a procedure or failing to pay attention. It is quite similar to the categories of human error we discussed earlier. So, but when we forget to carry out a particular step in procedures or failing to pay much attention to it, then we said that we categorized that as based on the reasons model as lapses, that is memory failure, forgetting to signal or turn off headlights. So the third type of human error based on the reasons model is what we call the mistakes. I said it earlier when we started this video that human error is different from mistake. It's just mistake is just a category under, it's just a subdivision under human error. And here we say there are errors of judgment or decision making where the intended action is wrong. Sometimes like the faulty planning or judgment, underestimating stopping distance, not giving enough um, distance between the vehicle and the one ahead of you. So that can be a faulty judgment or a bad decision making where the intended action is wrong. So then that is what we call a mistake. But the last part, the difference between the first three and the last part is that the last one, which is the violation, it has some level of intentions to it. We said they are intentional deviation from rules or procedures. So for the violation, it is just beyond the slips, the lapses, or the mistake, but an intentional deviation from rules or procedures. And this can be often motivated by desire, maybe to save time, to get to an appointment as soon as possible, by running red lights, by overspeeding, because these actions are what we call an intentional deviation. They are intentional action. So when there is an intentional action from or intentional deviation from the rules or procedures, then we call that a violation. So these are the four types of human error based on the reasons model. And like I said earlier, the reasons model is also called the Swiss cheese model. So we are going to be looking at why do we call it the Swiss cheese? What is the motive behind calling this model the Swiss cheese? So we're going to be looking into that in the next slide. Okay. Um, from what we can see here, we can see a diagram of a cheese on the right side of the slide. But before we go into it, I think my first encounter when it comes to cheese or this type of cheese is when I was still quite young. There is this cartoon we watch as a family. We call it Tom and Jerry. As a Nigerian, I think almost everyone knows Tom and Jerry. So there is something about Jerry, which is the rodent or the rat. He, um, he likes cheese. So one of the things that Tom tries to use to get Jerry is usually the cheese. So he places the cheese at some strategic places in the house, hoping that it will draw the attention of Jerry. Then from there, you know, go after Jerry. So I think that is the first time I had an encounter with or get to have a vivid picture of what a cheese look like, or this type of cheese which we call the Swiss cheese. So That is the first time I get to encounter this. And one thing I observe is the holes between this cheese. So growing up and getting to know that we have different types of cheese, and I know getting to buy some other types of cheese over the years, you can see that no, not every cheese has this hole. So that shows that there is something significant about this particular type of cheese. And now we can see the holes in form of, holes within the cheese, and that is where the concept of this model comes into play. Because based on the Raisins model of human error, also known as the Swiss cheese model, it suggests that accidents are often the result of a confluence of failures across multiple layers of defense within a system. What is James, or what is he trying to explain from this model? That is, until there are loopholes within every layer of a cheese that could pierce through. So we can have an error, or we can have a failure across maybe two of the fences, which is from the layers of defenses, which we represent here as the cheese slices, or what we call the vulnerabilities, but does not necessarily extend to the end of the cheese. So the moment we have an an occurrence where there are loopholes from the beginning of when the error happens till getting piercing through to the hand, then that is when we know that an accident occurs. So accident occur when holes align organizational, from what it can be seen here. So these layers, like slices of Swiss cheese, have holes or weaknesses that can be exploited by error and latent condition. And when these holes align, an accident can occur. If all these holes does not align, means an accident might not occur as the end goal. But when all these various holes, which can be in form of vulnerability, when they all are aligned, or what we call the human errors, or which can be as a result of some human factors, when they all align, as we can see in the slide here, we can see the error. So as a result, we have the active failures or the unsafe acts. So that can be a hole or a vulnerability. Then we also have the precondition to unsafe acts, which can be as a result of latent or active failure, is also another hole. Unsafe supervision, another hole. Organization influence. So when all these things, all these failures, or all these absent defenses all create a hole through successfully, then at that point we can say an accident will occur. So here we have a scenario, a case one, that is distracted driving incident. We have a scenario based on hypothetical, whether it is hypothetical or real. We have this scenario. A 22-year-old driver crashes into a pedestrian while texting at a traffic light, fails to see the green light, and accelerates late while still looking at the phone. We can see there are different, when we look into it based on the types of the human error according to the reason model or the Swiss cheese model, we can see that there are some certain types of error under the reason model that occurred in this process. Because one thing we can see here, from there we have the human factor analysis. We can see that the driver is cognitively or virtually distracted, that is delay response to environmental cues, each pedestrian crossing legally. So this we can see, because here we have fails to see the green light, that is one, and accelerates late is also another one, and looking at the phone while driving is another. So here now we look at the types of error based on that question. The first one is the sleep. When we say this, that is possible if the driver accidentally press the accelerator. Maybe the driver might accidentally press the accelerator, you know, from what we can see here. It says and accelerates late. The acceleration rate accelerating late might be as a result of saying that it has changed. The light has changed, and just as an error accelerates here, which is what we call the sleep, possible if the driver accidentally pressed the accelerator. Then the lapse, forgetting the pedestrian or not registering them while texting. So that could be the lapse based on that case study. The mistake is misjudging ability to multitask, thinking that I can chat and I can also drive, or thinking, okay, this is the red light. This is the red light. Within the time of the red light, let me just quickly press my phone or probably return the message before it changes to the green light. So that can be misjudging. Then the violation, yes, texting while driving is a known risk and often illegal. So that is a violation, because the moment you pick up the phone to chat while driving, it's a violation. So there is an intention. When it's an intentional thing where you pick up the phone, because you know that it is wrong to text while driving. So that explains it based on the error. Based on that case study, this is the breakdown based on the types of error we have under the reason model. Then we have the based on the switch cheese model application. Then we have the barriers, and the hole is in the barrier. The barrier here, we have the driver's behavior. That is, the behavior of the driver is using of the phone while driving. So that is a hole. So creating that hole does not necessarily lead to accident immediately. Like we said earlier when I was explaining on the Swiss cheese, we see there are holes in different layers of the cheese. So the moment there is a penetration through all those holes till the end, then that is when an accident happens. So this first barrier here is, yes, the driver was the driver in question was using the phone while driving. It does not immediately result in an accident, but it has created a hole, which is a vulnerability. The chances that there might be an accident as a result of the action of that driver. Then the next barrier is the technology. That is no blocking of phone use while in motion. So there is no form of anything that blocks the use of mobile phone when you are in motion. So that creates another hole. So since there is that technology is not in place, then it creates another barrier, which means there is the use of the mobile phone can still go through, because there is nothing stopping the driver from using the mobile phone at that time. Then the next barrier is the infrastructure. Maybe crosswalk poorly marked or poorly, you know. So this can also create a hole in the barrier. Maybe the crosswalk was not properly marked, and that so the driver did not notice that, but which is also as a result of the fact that he's also distracted on the phone, creates another hole in that barrier. Then the last part is the law enforcement, texting laws which may exist but be weakly enforced. The driver might think, when was the last time someone this kind of thing happened? When we see someone being arrested for using their phone while driving, because the laws are weak or not usually enforced, or it does not happen, or probably a type of accident doesn't happen occasionally, does not mean that that law or that habit is law abiding, or it's right. We know in some countries where they barely, or some cities, they barely experience accidents on the road, and as a result of that, people become so complacent, they become so comfortable with driving in a certain way, or in a way where they feel suits better, because they cannot remember the last time they've experienced an accident on the road, and that makes them very much comfortable when it comes to driving. Because an accident doesn't happen as a result of the failure to abide by the laws enforced, does not mean that it might not happen someday. And that is where the law enforcement comes into play. So when all these holes in the barrier, when they all align through, then an accident occurs. So we also have another case too here with 2009 Washington Metro crash. Yeah, we have the casualties, and we have 9 killed and over 80 injured. So what is the incident all about? The train 214 was stopped on the track due to congestion. So first thing is that the train 214 was congested, which shouldn't be. Then train 112 traveling behind it in automatic train operation ATO mode was expected to stop automatically. So now, when this train 214 stopped due to congestion, and the train coming behind train 214 is on automatic, that is automatic train operation, that is, it keeps moving automatically, so it is not controlled by humans. So since it is not controlled by humans, so it keeps moving. So even when there is the train ahead has stopped, because the other train 112 is on automatic mode, it might not be able to stop at that. And as a result of that, it says a track circuit mode failed to detect train 214, causing the system to think the track was clear. So, because the circuit fails to detect, and that is an error. We explained that under the organization and the system error, under the categories of error, which I explained earlier. So, the train operator of train 112 did not notice the hazard in time to prevent the crash. And as a result of that, we can see there is a whole lot of errors in this incident, whether from the system or from the train operators, or for notification failure to notify. And as a result of this, we can see different O's. The first O in this case is the train 214 stopping due to congestion. In the first place, there shouldn't have been a congestion. That is a O, a vulnerability in that sheet or in that system. And the ATO also being able to stop automatically as a result of seeing that train 214 ahead has stopped, failed also, which is also another O. So failure to stop, and the track circuit model failed to dictate, not failing to dictate and to think that the track was clear, is also a systematic failure. And even the train operator of train 112 did not notice the hazard in time, another human error, is also another O. So as a result of all these O's, or all these vulnerabilities, or all these errors, led to the accident. And that accident took the lives of 9 people, and 80 people were injured. So this happened in 2009. Now, it happened in 2009. So we can see from here what I explained earlier, the types of error. So the slip and the lapses here is not prominent. That is, since operator had limited control in automatic mode. So then the mistake, yes, the assumption in the design, that is the vulnerability of the ATC system. Then the violation here is not relevant in this case. So, but we can also still say one of it is overcrowding, that the congestion and the in the train. So what are the barriers and the holes? I think I already explained this. That is the system design, that is for train detection failure. There is no redundancy in the train detection. Then the maintenance, the non-faulty train circuit was not replaced. So since that was not replaced, it could not actually properly detect that a train, or maybe it's this another thing about this is that them, because something doesn't happen for a long time does not mean that it cannot happen someday. So there is this level of complacency when it comes to the maintenance of certain things, thinking because it doesn't happen or it has not happened for a while means it might not happen. So they just have this how do I call it, a look over, like over some of this kind of maintenance. Then we have the barrier of this human supervision. Even when the train is operating on automation, there is also a need for the human supervisor, or um, the person in charge should also pay attention in case if there is any form of lapses, like what happened in this case. Then the policies and the regulations, that is the lack effective backup system for ATC failure. So in case if one fails, there should be an alternative that can be able to spot that failure and act accordingly. So this is just based on the Swiss cheese model application on that case study. So we have the common causes of error in traffic. Yes, we already explained some of this at the beginning of the slide. We have the fatigue and drowsiness. Yes, distraction, the mobile phones. So this is just going through some of this causes again, which we've highlighted in the course of the study. That is infotainment. Some of this might be through the billboards on the road, showing some informations and infotainment, trying to read through and not concentrating on the road. So stress, anger, and other emotional state is also another cause of error in traffic. Then inexperience, and overconfidence, that we've seen over the course of the years. And poor road or vehicle design can also be another cause of this error. So the high risk scenarios is night driving. There's high chances of and error, human error happening during night driving, monotonous highway, urban intersections, and also high speed roads. On the high speed roads where there is a level of speed limit, the chances of human error are occurring in that situation is also high. So these are just some of the high risk scenarios. So designing system to minimize error. So these are some of the possible designs that needs to be in place in order to minimize this type of error, such as error tolerant vehicles and road design. That is putting a warning system and feedback mechanism in case of a lane change. We've seen over the years there has been a lot of development when it comes to this, trying to minimize the human error. Before now, we used to have some vehicles where before you can, when you want to reverse a vehicle or a car. You see drivers making use of the rear mirror to do that. But now we have some technologies where you can easily, there is a rear camera you can see from your vehicle, the rear. There's a camera behind that shows what is behind you, which makes it very easy to reverse the vehicle just to minimize the error. Then we have the drivers training and education, which is very much important, and automations, that is the pros and cons in reducing the human error. So the error prevention and mitigation strategies, yes, that has to be some of it in which I explained earlier, has to be the training and awareness campaign. And I think this is one aspect that needs to be worked on. And I feel it's also another research area where for people who are into research in this field needs to look into. When we have drivers going for driving training or drivers training, I think it is much more important to also look into more of trainings and awareness campaign when it comes to some of these human errors. Not just about learning how to drive alone, but also paying attention to some of these errors. Then we have the driver's monitoring system, that is being able to spot fatigue detection or lane assist, helping drivers to change lane successfully, or being able to spot when a driver is tired in the course of driving. And I think this is also another aspect where there's a lot of a research gap that needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to the human error. So I think the fatigue detection is a very important aspect or a research area that researchers needs to look more into in order to help to mitigate and to prevent some of these errors. We have better infrastructure design, that is the rumble strips and the roundabouts. It helps to keep the driver alive and active while driving. Then we have the behavioral intervention, like the speed feedback signs or the nudges, and policies and regulations. So showing that there is zero tolerance for phone use. And I think this policy needs to be there should be a strict measure in place when it comes to this policy, as it has been taken for granted over the course of the years, not just when it comes to the drivers but also the other road users, like the cyclists. I've seen over the years, you see people riding their bicycle and still making use of their mobile phone in the process, one hand on the handle and the other hand on their phone. Or some of the road users, when it comes to the pedestrians, also crossing the road without mm, um, having an understanding of their environment. Maybe a vehicle might have lost control of the brake, or anything could have happened. But we see pedestrians pressing their phone or making use of their mobile phones while on the road. So I think there should be a strict policy and regulation to the zero tolerance for mobile phone. So that is it on the human hero, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.